Hello students, myself Dr. Sandeep Pai. I am Assistant Professor at Department of Botany, Rayat Shikshan Sanstha Dada Patil Mahavidyalaya Karjat. I will be dealing here with FYBSc Botany Semester 1 Paper 2nd. Let me discuss with you first some points about the paper. This paper BO 112 Plant Morphology and Anatomy, it's the second paper in the FYBSc syllabus of SPPU. First credit comprises of morphology of reproductive parts. Into morphology of reproductive parts, we are supposed to see inflorescence, flower and fruit morphologies. The second credit, comprising of another 15 lectures, comprises of anatomy, types of tissues and internal organization of plant body. 2 lectures for anatomy, 8 lectures for types of tissues and 5 lectures for internal organization of plant body. I am going to deal particularly with the second credit, which is having 15 lectures weightage, and it will be dealt in 3 parts. First anatomy, then types of tissues, and third I will be dealing with internal organization of plant body. Let us start with the first part, which is anatomy, which is comprising of 2 lectures. What we are supposed to see into anatomy? We are supposed to see the introduction and definition. We are also supposed to see importance of anatomy in taxonomy, physiology, ecological interpretations, pharmacognosy and wood identification. So this syllabus is very specific for anatomy, where we are going to introduce you to the part of anatomy, which is normally the internal organization and study of internal organization, I should say, and we will also deal with its importance, why it is important and where its application can be found, so that we tend to understand how other branches of botany like physiology, taxonomy are related to anatomy, and how anatomy helps in understanding these particular subjects, these particular divisions better. So first thing first, let us start with the introduction and definition. When we talk about anatomy, and particularly being into botany, we talk about plant anatomy. It is of great importance. Without plant anatomy, we can't understand physiological processes. So any physiological processes which are going into the plants, may it be photosynthesis, may it be respiration, may it be any of other physiological processes like nitrogen metabolism, we can't understand it unless and until we understand anatomy. Next, phylogenetic relationship. What does phylogenetic relationship mean? Phylogenetic relationship mean the relation of one family to the another family, one group with another group, primitive group with the advanced group. So when we try to compare both these factors, both these groups or families, when we try to compare it, there anatomy plays very important role. It helps to understand, anatomy helps to understand the function of tissues, the various types of tissues which are there into the plants, right? So we will be trying to understand function of each of the tissues, and then adaptations of plant to environment, how plants have adapted themselves, right, from what we can say aquatic plants to terrestrial plants to epiphytes to parasites, how these plants have adapted themselves and what are the specific features anatomically, right? Physically or morphologically, we tend to see many features which are distinguishable from one another. But when you cut open a plant through its roots, through its, you can say, stem, leaf, you see different cells, different tissues, different organization of cells and tissues. So when you try to understand that, then you can see the adaptation made by that particular group on basis of anatomy. Things we study in plant anatomy: we tend to study cell structure and its components, right? So cell is a basic unit of life. All eukaryotic organisms are made up of the smallest part is cell. They are made from cell. Plant is different from animal on basis of the one phenomenon that is known as totipotency. Totipotency is nothing but the ability of a single cell to multiply, grow into a complete individual by itself, right? So the things that we will study into plant anatomy will comprise of cell structure. So we need to know how the cells are, what types of cells are present, and their components also. So that is a part of anatomy. Cell wall and cell division, how cell wall is formed, what are the components of cell wall, and then also we are supposed to see how cell division occurs. Tissues and tissue systems, cells come together to form tissues, and we are supposed to see what kind of tissues and tissue systems are there into plant anatomy. Primary and secondary structures in plant parts, what are primary structures into plants and what are the secondary structures which are present into plants. Ecological aspects, yes, we need to also study the ecological aspects when it comes to plant anatomy. And finally, we are also supposed to see the importance and its applications as well, so where it can be applied. Let us start with the definition of plant anatomy, how we define it. Before moving on to definition, I want to clear you that ana, the term ana comes from Greek word ana, which says that asunder or separate, or we can also say in small pieces. So when we say it is in small pieces, it is ana. Ana is a Greek word. And temenian means to cut. Okay, it's a Greek word. Theophrastus was the first to use anatomy as the name when he started learning about the plants and animals also. The synonym for this is internal morphology, right? So anatomy, when I say anatomy, internal morphology is internal morphology would be a what we can say explanation, would be an explanation for anatomy. So anatomy directly is not understandable to people, but when you say internal morphology, yes, it means something. It means that internal, inside, morphology, the structures. So the organization, the structure of internal part is nothing but anatomy. So now we tend to move on to the actual definition for plant anatomy. The study of internal structure of plant organs by section cutting is known as plant anatomy. It's a simple textbook definition. If you have been asked to define plant anatomy, you can directly say the study of internal structure of plant organs by section cutting is known as plant anatomy. I hope you get this clear. Now we tend to see the importance of plant anatomy. What is the importance of plant anatomy? Importance of plant anatomy in terms of taxonomy, how it is important in taxonomy, into physiology, how it is applied into physiology, ecological interpretations, then pharmacognosy, and lastly wood identification. I have discussed this, I have told you in the syllabus itself that we are going to see the importance of plant anatomy into each of these categories. Now that we have understood that we are going to study the internal organization, the syllabus says, right? We have to first understand what is anatomy, and then we are going to see the importance of plant anatomy in each of these specializations, which is taxonomy, physiology, ecological interpretation, pharmacognosy, and wood identification. So what I have done here is I have made some slides specific to each of them, so that 1 or 2 slides onto that end of the chapter, end of that particular section, so that you will be understanding all that part, all that importance of plant anatomy in taxonomy into 1 or 2 slides, so that becomes your micro notes, and that will help you during your examination. That will help you just to make your notes clear, right? I don't say that just restrict yourself to these online lectures or the lectures which are given by teachers. This is to help you out to understand the topic better. For further access, you have to refer to the books, the textbooks, the online material which is available, which I will be definitely sharing with you all, and which is available open source onto net, right? You give a search for importance of plant anatomy in taxonomy, you will get some literature out of it. So try to correlate it with your syllabus, try to correlate it with the lecture that I am giving right now, and make your own notes. That will help you to prepare yourself for that final examination. And once you do that, end of it, okay, during your examinations you have to just overlook. You understand this topic better now. You have to just overlook after your exam dates have come, and you can attend for the examinations. So plant anatomy in taxonomy, how important it is. Let us first understand what is taxonomy. Taxonomy is a science of identification, classification, nomenclature, and description of plants in botanical terms, or rather in botany. You consider it as in botany. Plants classified according to their characteristics and interrelationships. Yes, we know that plants are classified according to their characteristics, their morphology, and then we also try to find out how plants are related to other plants. Like we try to compare one plant, whether it is in relation to the another plant, right? So when you compare these characteristics, you find some key features, key characters which can be separating one plant with the another plant, and that particular key feature becomes the specific character of that plant. Okay, so apart from the morphological parts, anatomical characters are also essential when it comes to identification of plants. So what would be the anatomical characters that you will see? The anatomical character would be epidermal outgrowth, stomatal morphology, how stomatas are, like we have studied into our lower classes that stomatal morphology, if you see the two major types of stomata, you will see kidney shaped stomatas, you will also see dumbbell shaped stomatas. When I say kidney shaped stomatas, you will directly say that it may be a character of a dicot, and when I say dumbbell shaped stomata or the guard cell, when I am talking about kidney shape or the dumbbell shape, it is particularly for the guard cells of the stomata, right? So when I say dumbbell shaped stomata, you will say that this particular character is of monocots, right? Many monocots will show you dumbbell shaped stomatas. Then there are arrangements also, where in case of dicots it is distributed throughout onto the leaves randomly, reticulately. When it comes to particular, in case of monocots, they are organized into one particular way, and that particular way would be very different right? It's arranged into one below the another. Epidermal mineral crystals. So there are some crystals formed. There are some crystals formed in the epidermal cells, and that also forms to be the differentiating character, and which will be helpful in taxonomy, plant taxonomy. Vascular bundles, xylems and phloems. Yes, the arrangement, the type of xylem, metaxylem, protoxylems, the organization of xylem and phloem with cambial ring, outside, inside. So these characters, we will be seeing them in detail, but these characters will help in taxonomy, right? So plant anatomy in taxonomy, that is how it can be made. Now the next part is plant anatomy in physiology. So like we have understood what is plant anatomy, we are supposed to find out that know that what is plant physiology. Plant physiology is concerned to study of vital activities in the plants. Example, like I said earlier, photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, absorption, growth, etc. So growth also comes into plant physiology, where we say that how growth happens to be, it is unidirectional, irreversible process, right? So where there is division or multiplication of cell. When I say division or multiplication, in case of biology or in case of cytology, it means the same. But when it comes to mathematics, division and multiplication are two different entities. But into biology, we say both division or multiplication of cells, right? So plant physiology, these all things come into plant physiology. Thus anatomy has following significance. What are the following significance? Let us see. Physical process, diffusion, osmosis, imbibition, etc. Diffusion, when there is a transport of liquid from higher concentration to lower concentration, we say that it is diffused. Now how it is diffused? Because there is a higher concentration at one side and there is lower concentration onto another side. There is a tendency that from higher concentration the level goes to lower concentration. This particularly may be for calcium, this particularly may be for potassium, or this particularly may be for even protons, right? So diffusion is a process. Similarly, osmosis. I hope you understand what is osmosis. Into osmosis, we say that when a cell is separated from the other cells and is kept into an empty plate, what happens is, or into water directly, you isolate a cell and place into water, what happens is the cell tends to burst, because there is a pressure which is building up inside the cell, and the pressure is so large as compared to the outer environment that cell tends to burst. So to maintain this pressure, what you are supposed to do is you have to give a similar kind of pressure from outside, right? So the pressure inside and the outside pressure tends to be similar, and this can be attained with addition of some chemicals like salts, sugars into water, and place the cell into it, so that the pressure inside and outside pressure tends to be built. Then imbibition is a process during germination, where a seed when kept in water, what happens is it absorbs water and it tends to bulge. When it is bulging, there is a physiological process going inside the seed. There are some oils and fatty acids which are being converted into required enzymes, right, inside the seed. So when the seed bulges, when it absorbs water, it bulges. When it bulges, that particular stage is called as imbibition particularly. So etc. many physical processes are to be studied when it comes to anatomy, and how diffusion takes place, from which cell to which cell, how osmosis takes place, and how imbibition takes place into the in vivo inside the plants, how it takes place. Study of all this requires anatomy, and that is how anatomy takes part into physiology. Similarly, anatomy also is important in case of understanding growth. So when there is growth into plants, we say normally, we say the apical meristem performs function like division and growth. We say that apical meristem tends to perform growth. So normally we say the plant growing in vertical direction upward. When plant is growing upward, what is happening actually? Actually, at one particular part, that is the apex of the plant, there is continuous division. There is continuous division of cells happening. So the apical meristem, okay, it is a group of meristematic tissue, meristematic cells, which knows just to multiply the cells, and as they get multiplied, the plant starts growing, and then there is differentiationing occurring. There is a process known as differentiation. So differentiation is occurring later, after the cell divides further, the later part differentiation occurs, and then you will see a branch growing, or a flower coming, or a leaf coming, or a bud coming, or a fruit coming. So that is differentiation, right? When you say differentiation of plant, you will differentiate into leaf, root, and other active parts of the plants. So anatomy has a role into growth, that is of physiology of growth is studied via anatomy. Then conduction, water and minerals, like we know that there is an assembly, there is an active assembly into the plants which conduct, they take up water, minerals from the roots, and they tend to give it at a process where it is required, at a part where it is required rather. So the water or the mineral which is required in the leaves, say, just assume this, that water and minerals is required into the leaf. Where does the water come from in the leaf? Then you will say that water may be coming from the stem or leaf, but where does the water come into leaf, or where does the water come into stem? It comes from the ground level, and into ground you have, into soil you have root system embedded into the soil, and these roots tend to absorb water as well as nutrients from the soil, which are readily available in ionic forms, we should say, and then it tends to provide this water and nutrients to the other parts, like leaf. I said that leaf requires water and nutrients, so it tends to provide it into the leaf. Now how does this happen? To know this physiology, how this conduction is occurring, you need to cut open the plant and see what are the tissue systems, what are the cells involved into this particular machinery, right? So conduction of water and minerals, translocation of organic food by phloem. This is a part of conduction as well, translocation from one part to another part. Say there is a food which is produced. Now conduction, I said, normally from roots to leaf. Into leaf you have chlorophyll, they are green, right? So it has chlorophyll into it, sunlight falls onto the leaf, water is provided by the roots till the leaf, minerals are provided into the leaf. What happens into leaf? Photosynthesis. What is the product of photosynthesis? It's the food, C6H12O6, right? You remember that famous reaction of photosynthesis. And when this food is formed, this food from the leaf is to be translocated from one area to another area where it may be stored or required. You may see photosynthesis occurring into the leaf of a carrot, and food material, whatever is the food material, it is stored into the underground part into the underground part, which is the bulge carrot. How that carrot grows into a large shape? Because there is a photosynthesis process which is going above. As a product of photosynthesis, there is food material produced, and that food material is back translocated into that organ. It's normally the root, and that root grows into large size of a carrot. And this was in case of carrot, right? In other plants, it may not be stored into the roots or may be stored into the roots. It may be translocated from leaf to some other part like fruit, like other parts into stem or any storage tissues. Okay, so this is translocation, and to understand that you need to understand plant anatomy, right? So phloem, how it takes part, what are the different parts of phloems? So that part it covers into plant anatomy. Further again, plant growth continuous. Yes, it's a continuous process. It's irreversible. Yes, it is irreversible. Changes in structures. Yes, there is changes in structures. So when there is plant growth, we are supposed to see the differentiation occurring, whether it is reversible and whether the structures of cells are changing or not. So that comes into again plant anatomy. This is how plant anatomy is helping into plant physiology. Finally, I should say photosynthesis, transpiration. Photosynthesis and transpiration also take part into the process.